Welcome back to the War Room. Owen Scheuer and Roger Stone sitting in with us today, Mike Zimmerman and Rob Dew. Mike Zimmerman was with me in our wild trip to Washington, D.C. It was kind of Roger and Michael's very great adventure. Disneyland at the Potomac. Now, I've revised one of my most famous rules, which I'd actually stolen from Gore Vidal. It used to be never pass up the opportunity to have sex or be on television. I've now amended that to never pass up the opportunity to have sex, be on television, or testify for the House Intelligence Committee. I must say that I found the proceedings to be polite, courteous, and professional, despite the fault lines between the Republicans, who are focused on the larger issue of whether the Russians interfered in the election period, and the Democrats, who seem to be focused on trying to prove that Donald Trump or the Trump campaign or Trump associates colluded with the Russians, conspired with the Russians to affect the outcome. Because I think most of you know that the proceedings were held behind closed doors with no release of the transcript. So in other words, Congressman Schiff, Congressman Speer, Congressman Swalwell, they get to attack you publicly in open hearings, public hearings. They get to attack you on television. But when it's time for your response, well, that has to be done behind closed doors. I was forthcoming and honest in all my answers. I denied, again, any knowledge of any evidence of collusion by the Russians, and I specifically demolished the idea that I knew about the hacking of John Podesta's email in advance, or that I knew about the source or content of the WikiLeaks October disclosures on Hillary. And lastly, we demolished the idea that Guccifer 2.0 and my communication with that entity, whoever that is, if that's really a person or a group of people, did not constitute collusion based on content, context, and timing of that very public exchange. It was innocuous. So collusion, no. I think because we knew that they would not allow me to testify in public, we specifically, as an exclusive for Infowars.com, taped my testimony in advance, and that at the exact time that I was saying these words before the House committee, the world could see what I was saying. Let's take a look. Well, we seem to have a technical issue.
We'll be into that in 1 second, Roger.
All right. Well, let me say that Michael and I also had the opportunity to dine with Joyce Villa, who is the firebrand Trumpite conservative who comes from the world of entertainment, an extraordinarily talented woman, singer. You'll recall that Joy wore the Make America Great dress to the Emmys, causing an enormous uproar in the entertainment community. Joy Villa now being urged to run for Congress in her native New York by a group of activists. Unclear exactly what district we are talking about. Gentlemen, where are we on our tape?
We actually are having some technical difficulties as far as the video end of things go, Roger, but we'll continue doing audio here as they get that back up.
All right.
But yes, well, it was great meeting Joy, and she really is a great face for this whole movement.
There's no question. People find it hard to believe that anyone in that industry could be a conservative or a Trumpite, and I think we know that there are many, many more conservatives in Hollywood and in the entertainment world, but they don't want to destroy their careers where the industry is politically correct. So they hide their political views, as they say, under a bushel. That's why I admire Joy Villa so much. She is one gutsy woman, not afraid to stand up and talk about the Trump agenda, the Trump reforms. And of course, she's been subject, as I have, to a number of personal attacks and vituperation. That's the thing about the tolerant left. I knew that the personal attacks on me would increase as my testimony got closer. I'm encountering more and more violence in the streets, more and more people shouting obscenities, screaming that I'm a Russian agent. I saw what happened to Alex Jones in Portland, I guess it was. That's the same kind of thing that I am experiencing. Anyway, let's take a look now at my testimony.
This is the statement that I'm giving right now to the House Intelligence Committee because they steadfastly refuse to hold this hearing in public and refuse to release the transcript. I have no choice but to come here to Infowars.com so that you can hear precisely what I'm saying to the U.S. House Committee this morning. I'm most interested in correcting a number of falsehoods, misstatements, and misimpressions regarding allegations of collusion between Donald Trump, the Trump associates, the Trump family, the Trump campaign, and the Russian state. I'm no stranger to the slash and burn aspects of American politics today. I recognize that because of my long reputation and experience as a partisan warrior, I'm a suitable scapegoat for those who would seek to persuade the public that there were wicked international transgressions in the 2016 presidential election. The members of this committee could not point to any tactic that is outside the accepted norms of what political strategists and consultants do today. I do not engage in any illegal activities on behalf of my clients or the causes which I support. There is one trick that is not in my bag, and that is treason. Multiple members of this committee had made false allegations against me in public sessions in order to ensure that these bogus charges receive maximum media coverage. Now, however, you deny me the very opportunity to respond to these charges in the same open public forum in which they were made. This is cowardly. Given this committee's consistent refusal to allow me to testify in a public session, in the interest of compromise, I repeatedly requested that the transcript of my testimony here today be released immediately upon conclusion of today's session. Even this constructive suggestion has been summarily rejected. What is it you fear? Why do you oppose transparency? What is it you don't want the American people to know? These hearings are largely based on a yet unproven allegation that the Russian state is responsible for the hacking of the DNC and John Podesta, and the transfer of the information to WikiLeaks. No member of this committee and no intelligence agency can prove this assertion. The Nation magazine recently reported on a study issued by Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, or VIPS, which is comprised of a number of former high-level U.S. intelligence officials. Based on their study, the Nation concluded, and I quote, "There was no hack of the Democratic National Committee system on July 5th, 2016, not by the Russians and not by anyone else. Hard science now demonstrates it was a leak, a download executed with a local memory key or a similar."
I think our listeners get the gist of this. This was shot at about 1 o'clock in the morning. I had been closeted with my attorneys all day at a downtown law office, going over all of the materials and preparing my testimony. And then after we finalized it, it was so late at night. If I look a little weary there, I think you can understand. In any event, several things came out of that hearing, and we will talk about them in more extensive detail in the next section. But while I'm at it, I want to remind you to hit the Infowars.com store, because the only reason we can bring you the breaking news about what's going on in Washington and around Donald Trump is because we are the tip of the spear. Welcome back to the War Room today with Michael Zimmerman, Rob Dew, and your host, Roger Stone. Got a major update for our audience. As you may recall, last week I reported on the Chinese double agent, Miles Kwok, a Hillary Clinton bundler and fundraiser and associate of George Soros, and the fact that the Trump administration was refusing to extradite him to China. Kwok had become a sticking point in the negotiations between President Trump and the Chinese over North Korea, because Kwok is guilty of massive financial crimes in both China and the United States. Well, our first worldwide report on this story got picked up worldwide. That's right, our report right here at InfoWars reached millions and saturated the Asian continent. Second, our report, the Trump administration has become aware of the politics of the extradition of Mr. Kwok, where Soros retainer H.R. McMaster has been the strongest voice for keeping Kwok in the United States, regardless of the cost to Sino-U.S. relationships. Let's remember, President Trump has gotten the Chinese to do far more on the North Korean question than Barack Obama was ever able to do. This makes sense, of course, because Kwok is a Soros associate. Now I can tell you that former British Prime Minister Tony Blair called Kwok directly, called McMaster directly on Kwok's behalf and took a $2 million payment to do so. Blair, who just last week said that Brexit should be overturned. Based on what I have seen, Blair's nonprofit got $3 million from Kwok, while Blair himself got $2 million. Blair was introduced to Kwok by the mysterious and exotic Wendy Deng, former wife of Rupert Murdoch and widely believed to be a Chinese intelligence asset. It is thought that Kwok and Deng were affiliated within the Chinese intelligence and service, and in fact, Deng is suspected of being Kwok's handler, until he turned on his Chinese benefactors and decided to go online and engage in massive, sophisticated financial crimes. Blair also traveled to the Middle East with Kwok and helped Kwok raise money for the UAE from the Saudis. In fact, the Iranians may also be involved, and that is the next stage of our effort. So stay tuned for more about this breaking story here at InfoWars.
So, Roger, I've got a question for you. With the fallout of this Luther Strange loss to Judge Roy Moore, it's come out that Jared Kushner was pushing Donald Trump to back Luther Strange. What is the intel that you've received on that?
I can confirm that. I guess the moral of this story is don't get advice about conservative Republican primaries from liberal Democrats who don't understand the dynamics. See, the real shame here is the missed opportunity. Donald Trump can threaten to campaign against Republican incumbents who knife him in the back in the Congress, but those elections are late next year, and we need progress before that. Because this is a special election for the seat of Jeff Sessions, the president had a unique opportunity to send a message to Mitch McConnell, whose hand-picked candidate was Luther Strange. Even though Luther Strange was not strong on gun issues and Second Amendment issues as Attorney General of Alabama, for example, McConnell was able to arm twist the NRA into an endorsement without ever interviewing any of the other candidates. In fact, it's fair to say that President Trump was never told that Judge Roy Moore was in the race. He was led to believe this was a two-way race between Senator Luther Strange and Congressman Brooks, who is a virulent and vocal anti-Trumper. And therefore, he was taking the least of two evils. In fact, it was a four-way race with Dr. Randy Brinson, an original Trump supporter who was the head of the Alabama Christian Coalition, Judge Moore, who's always been a strong contender in, I believe, three previous statewide outings, and then, of course, Luther Strange. Now, what's interesting, of course, is that Judge Moore will be a more reliable supporter of the Trump agenda than Luther Strange ever would have been. And the president, in a very Reagan-esque move, made it clear that he would campaign for Moore, that he supported Moore, and that he will support the nominee of the Republican Party. I think the president is going to find that that Judge Moore will be a more loyal ally than Luther Strange would ever have been. So the question is, how much damage does the president sustain from this loss? I think the answer is he doesn't sustain as much of a loss as Mitch McConnell. Believe me, the defeat of Luther Strange, and my hat's off to my friend Steve Bannon, who was very actively involved in helping raise money and raise the stakes in this race for Judge Moore. This was the shot heard around the world. Inside the Republican U.S. Senate caucus, there were many underwear replacements necessary, let's say. This caused absolute panic in the caucus because it demonstrates that the Republican grassroots primary voters are fed up with the Washington establishment and their undoing of President Donald Trump.
Right, and I would agree with you there. And if I could stop you, it also shows that Steve Bannon is now the de facto leader of the reformed Republican Party, and that there is no cult of Trump. People, even though Trump endorsed Strange, they didn't vote. They didn't follow Trump blindly down the road like a Pied Piper. They're like, you know what? We know this guy's better. We're going to educate you, sir. And they use this point as a really important education point for Trump. And now we see guys like Tom Corker saying they're not going to run for re-election. Do you have any news on any other Republicans that are going to just drop out and not run for re-election in 2018?
Well, Senator Corker, of course, is the subject of a number of ethics investigations, and there are many allegations about corruption. But there's been no fire where there seems to be substantial smoke. So we don't really know the reason that Senator Corker stepped aside. But you make a very good point, Rob. President Trump's approval rating in Alabama among Republican primary voters was an astounding 96%. In 40 years in American politics, I've never seen anything whatsoever like that. 96%.
That's huge.
Yet, people understood the president had been sold a bill of goods, and the president, to his credit, started to qualify his appointment, his endorsement of Luther Strange even before the polls opened. So I don't think the president sustains a giant defeat. In fact, I think there's a lesson to be learned. And if I were an establishment Republican, I guess I'd be wetting my pants also.
Excellent, excellent. I can't wait to see the next shoe to drop in the Republican Party, because we are seeing a reformation take place. Unlike the Democrats, it's not a total implosion, it's a reformation. It's like get the bad guys out, bring some good guys in,
what works, what doesn't,
faces in.
Move ahead.
Exactly. So we're going to be back with Roger. We got another 30 minutes with him here on The War Room. I'm Rob Dew. We got Michael Zerman, Roger Stone in New York joining us right now. You're watching us on Infowars.com/show for the free live stream. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Roger Stone reporting exclusively for Infowars.com. I testified for the House Intelligence Committee this morning on their ongoing investigation into the Russian collusion delusion. I made it very clear that I knew of no evidence whatsoever that Donald Trump, the Trump family, Trump associates, or the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian state or any representatives of the Russian state in order to impact the outcome of the 2016 election. I specifically denied and pointed to the fact that there was no evidence to the idea that I knew about the hacking of John Podesta's email in advance, that I knew about the content or scope or details of the WikiLeaks disclosures regarding Hillary Clinton in October, or that I had any meaningful dialogue with Guccifer 2.0, pointing out that the content, context, and timing of my limited exchange with someone claiming to be Guccifer 2.0 happened many weeks after WikiLeaks had published the DNC material. But there was enormous breaking news today. When I made the case that I did not believe that the DNC had been hacked by the Russians, in fact, that I did not believe it had been hacked at all, and made the point that the Democratic National Committee had refused to allow the FBI to inspect its servers, instead using a paid-for IT firm called CloudStrike, I was corrected by Congressman Jackie Speer of California, who informed me that she now knew that the DNC had, in fact, turned over their servers to the FBI. This was essentially seconded by Congressman Adam Schiff of California. This came to an extraordinary surprise to Trey Gowdy, the Republican from South Carolina. Mr. Gowdy pointed out to his Democratic colleagues that FBI Director James Comey and Homeland Security Secretary Johnson had both testified under oath to the House Intelligence Committee that the FBI had not been allowed to examine the DNC servers. This is a bombshell revelation. Somebody is lying. It is either Congressman Schiff and Congressman Speer, or, of course, it is Mr. Comey and Secretary Johnson. You won't find this or hear it anyplace else other than here at InfoWars.
Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you...
And that was Roger Stone detailing earlier this week the new revelations coming out of his testimony. And you were there, Michael Zimmerman. You saw Trey Gowdy leave the...
A few minutes before. Actually, I'll pull up a picture of this on my phone. We don't have this online or anything. It wasn't a great photo, so we didn't publish it. But Trey Gowdy was leaving, and I was like, oh, there goes Gowdy. And this was significant because the press was trying to get him to speak. They go, oh, you know, how did it go? He was the first one to leave, and he left pretty quickly. So you can actually get that right there, guys. So Gowdy was leaving from the closed hearing there, lots of press standing around, and wouldn't answer any questions. And then it became obvious, and Roger Stone gave us this exclusive. He didn't tell the rest of the press this, but Gowdy left upset at the end. He stayed till the end, but he left upset because he figured out this information. He's been a very big part of the investigation into these emails and the email server.
And supposed Russian hacking.
The supposed hacking, right. And they were withholding the information from him. They go, and when asked, he asked the others, he goes, is there something I need to know? When they said, oh no, the FBI has seen the server, and they go, we can talk about it later in a private session.
And we had Comey saying they didn't see it.
Exactly.
We had Jay Johnson saying they didn't see it.
So the public has been told, and they've been told under oath in these open hearings when Comey testified to this committee that they had not seen it. They had not seen the server, that CloudStrike had seen it. And now Adam Schiff and other Democrats are making it sound that, oh no, the FBI has seen this. So someone's lying.
Exactly. And Adam Schiff got Devin Nunes kicked off the committee because he was saying he was sharing information and withholding information and scurrying around with information. Now the Democrats are doing the same exact thing.
Exactly.
Nobody seems to be doing anything about it. Trey Gowdy seems to be just, well, you know, I'm going to get mad and butthurt, but not going to do anything about it. Why not have a press conference?
Well,
why not come out and put them on notice right then and there?
And I can kind of understand both sides of, you know, not immediately coming out and saying, you know, putting it on notice, because he's probably wondering, you know, what's the deal with all of this? And I'm sure we'll see over the next couple days or next week some sort of information come out regarding this, because that is a very significant thing that happened, probably the most significant thing that happened in the hearing of Roger Stone. Because otherwise, right, they weren't able to trap him in anything. They have mentioned when Adam Schiff came out that they were upset they didn't get a piece of information from him. And the press and Roger himself are speculating that was the identity of his intermediary when talking to WikiLeaks. So they asked, did you have communication with WikiLeaks? And he goes, no, not directly. And when Roger Stone came out, he told the press that was the major...
He's now got his eyes on me.
Point, exactly.
You brought up his name, and now he's behind
looking
me.
at you, breathing down your neck.
God.
So the major point, and Roger told the press this, is that, you know, he did not speak to Julian Assange or WikiLeaks directly. He spoke through an intermediary. And then when the press asked him who it was, he goes, well, and as members of the press, I'm sure you can understand why I'm not saying it was a member of the press who spoke to Julian Assange. So I'm not going to identify them because it was a off-the-record conversation with a member of the press, with another journalist.
There you go. Guys, let's get into this clip. This sort of has some relation to the DNC. This is about Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin. Laura Loomer, freelance journalist, confronted Huma Abedin about the laptop being used for pedophilia and Hillary Clinton's classified emails. Here is that exchange. Let's check it out.
Huma, It's all right. Thank God we got Trump.
Huma, are you now going to officially divorce Anthony Weiner now that he's been convicted of being a pedophile?
Can you, like, go away, guys?
Huma, are you finally going to divorce Anthony Weiner for being a pedophile?
That's why she's getting rid of
You guys, we have Huma Abedin here right now.
Hillary's girlfriend. I saw the picture myself.
Huma, I know that you don't want to testify against your husband, which is why you're staying married to him and you're not getting a divorce, but when are you going to, for the safety of your own son, divorce Anthony Weiner, who is a pedophile?
I know it's true, but, like, you know what?
Anthony Weiner was just convicted
He definitely
of being
he has
a
to
pedophile.
register as a sex offender
21
now.
months in prison for
Anthony Weiner is a pedophile. We've been saying that, but that's a fact. Anthony Weiner is a convicted pedophile.
Shame on you, Huma. Shame on you. Look, talk to the American people, Huma. Tell them.
Rally. I don't even have kids.
Leave her alone.
This is wonderful. Shame on you.
Yeah.
No.
Leave her alone.
Leave him alone.
Huma Abedin wants to walk the streets of New York
Don't talk to
City.
the hider of Hillary's classified emails. She's perfect.
You're good, so right. You don't want me to blow you over?
Guys, Huma Abedin is in New York City, walking the streets. Right
She's moving fast. Oh, she's stopping to take selfies. I wonder if Loomer's getting in those selfies.
Is it true that you're not divorcing Anthony Weiner so you guys don't have to testify against each other?
Pedophile.
What's going to happen?
That's it, because married couples do not have to testify against each other. So he wouldn't have to say what she was doing, she wouldn't have to say what he was doing.
And also with the contents of this laptop,
He was
She doesn't
talking with
want to be
19 other
involved with all
women
of
at the
this.
time of sexting this 15-year-old.
That you were sharing classified information.
and that's what she's asking about now. What happened to the laptop you're sharing classified information on?
What's Sharia law?
What's going to happen, Huma?
How could you want
And of course,
How could
Huma
you
is
not
the
divorce a
woman whose
man
mother
who
wears the
respects
hood over
underage
her
girls?
head.
I thought you were a
I mean, what the
feminist,
hell?
Huma. I thought you were a feminist.
Look, I know you don't want that.
I thought you were a feminist, Huma. Why are you protecting a man who is sexting underage girls?
Well, justice is a dish served warm or cold in the social media realm. And we'll be right back with more. We'll catch the tail end of
Excellent
this
video
when we come
from
back.
Laura Loomer.
That's from Laura Loomer. Thanks a lot for that.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and you're at the War Room. This has been an exciting launch of this new program, and despite the fact that I had to testify this week, I try to get here every day at 5 o'clock Eastern to bring you the latest breaking news from inside the Trump administration. Today, we can report that General John Kelly has moved on one of two Trump loyalists left in the White House. Yes, it's true. The Trump White House now seems to be staffed largely by liberal Democrats, establishment Republicans, neocons, and other globalists. Only Stephen Miller, former aide to Senator Jeff Sessions, and Peter Navarro, who until yesterday headed the president's Office of Trade Policy Management. Kelly has now moved on Navarro, demoting him and folding his Department of Trade Management underneath the Domestic Economic Council run by Goldman Sachs globalist Gary Cohn. Cohn, you'll remember, is a giant advocate of carbon tax credits, which would make millions for his colleagues at Goldman. It was also Cohn who said that when the president was headed to Paris for the global climate discussions, that the president's view was evolving, that the president was coming to Europe to, quote, get smart, setting the stage for a capitulation. Unfortunately, Donald Trump thought better of that idea. What I have just learned now is that the president is totally and completely unaware of the demotion of Navarro and the attempt to drive him out. They purposely humiliated both Miller and Navarro. Navarro had previously reported to Miller. Now he will report to his arch nemesis, Mr. Cohn. Peter Navarro, one of the true patriots, who has inside the Trump White House been the focal point of the effort to renegotiate the NAFTA agreement, something that President Donald Trump promised during the campaign. Navarro is the last voice inside the Trump White House pushing for both the renegotiation of NAFTA It was Navarro who led the charge against TPP, and Navarro who has urged the president to hang tough for the restoration of Glass-Steagall. Peter Navarro, a patriot, being squeezed out by General John Kelly. The other extraordinary thing we learned is the president may or may not know that not only was he subject to spying by the Obama administration, who we now know were in fact surveilling Trump Tower and watching Trump associates during the campaign, but we now know that General John Kelly is monitoring every one of the president's phone calls. That's right, this is Watergate times 10. He is eavesdropping on the chief executive of the United States, at least during the office hours from the White House and the Oval Office. But what about those phone calls late at night? It's well known that President Donald Trump is a night owl and that he gets a lot of work done in the early evening, middle evening, and yes, even late evening and night by working the phones more effectively than any president since Lyndon Baines Johnson. So is General Kelly monitoring those calls also? Stay tuned, because I intend to find out. Rob, Michael, what else have you got on your agenda?
Well, I tell you, what's going on with the Trump loyalists being pushed aside left and right, I mean, it really seems to me there's only one more left. I'm reading off of dealbreaker.com, and the writer keeps calling Navarro a loon and a crazy person. And he's saying that Navarro seems to be fine with this. He's just he understands the chain of command, and the chief has assured me that I will continue to have the same seat and voice at the president's decision-making table.
They won't stop until they get rid of everyone who wants to push an America First agenda.
That's it.
Well, you see, that comment by Navarro, that's professionalism. You don't air your laundry in public when you serve an administration. So he's being a good soldier, the same way Keith Schiller, the president's bodyguard, who was squeezed out by Kelly only weeks ago, would not confirm that he had a fight with Kelly, would not talk about the reasons for his leaving. He was being a loyal soldier, not wanting to hurt the president and not wanting to promulgate this idea of chaos within the White House. So, but what Navarro says and what he really thinks could, of course, be two different things. The guy who should realize that this is headed his way is Stephen Miller. Let's be clear. They got rid of Steve Bannon. They demoted Navarro in an effort to get rid of him. They will be back for Miller. He is the bane of the globalists because he is the last standing nationalist other than Peter Navarro. They call him the Minister of Truth. Now, I don't know Mr. Miller, but I like Mr. Miller a lot. I like the way he writes. I like the way he thinks. And, of course, the fact that the liberals hate him, well, that just makes me like him even more.
Well, and I like the way he stands up to the press. He could go out there and take questions and throw them right back in their faces and point out how their hypocrisy spot on. And so I got a lot of respect for him in that regard. But it is amazing how Trump has been surrounded by Kelly and his cronies. Who knows if he's being surveilled with his private phone calls at night. But one thing's for sure, this is not a good sign. And it seems to be, if they stop him on taxes, which, they're trying to push it out before Thanksgiving, it's not going to be looking at a great banner year other than the economy roaring back to life.
Well, now they're saying there's no guarantee that taxes won't go up for the middle class. In this recent article from ABC News today.
Well, of course, that's antithetical to Trumpism. Absolutely antithetical to Trumpism. Look, the president still has some very large problems on his plate. He has announced that he will be doing an executive order on health insurance next week. He has vast power in this area, so just because Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate cannot deliver, well, perhaps the president can achieve something on health care via executive order. But this notion of a middle-class tax increase, this would be the functional end of Trumpism. Donald Trump has got to hang tough for a 15% business tax rate above all. Our tax rate must be below that of Mexico, that of Canada, that of China, that of Japan. it would cause the kind of enormous economic boom that the country desperately needs, but also would secure Donald Trump a second term should he want one. I can see the Goldman Sachs crowd now trying to undermine the president's tax reduction plan.
Absolutely, because they do not want to see the prosperity in this. They're globalists. They want to ship everything out to these third world countries. They do not want to see this American prosperity and what initially made America great in the first place, and which is part of the president's agenda to make America great again. Let's be competitive. Let's be prosperous. Let's have a strong middle class.
Let's put America first.
Exactly.
Now, as we go to break, Roger's going to take off, and we'll see him again tomorrow here on the War Room. But I just want to let people know, during this break, go to InfoWarsStore.com. It's the way you can support us. Go and check out, right now we have 2 versions of Caveman, or True Paleo Formula, chocolate and strawberry. Both are incredible. I like to mix mine with whey protein powder, but you can check out Caveman Infuses powerful nutrition and cutting-edge nutraceutical science to create a high-quality supplement that uses bone broth. If you've watched any of our ads, you know about the bone broth.
Bone broth.
The bone broth. And 7 primal superfoods to give you power strength you've never felt before. And you can check out the reviews on there. We've got tons of 5-star reviews at InfoWarsStore.com of Caveman. You can see what other people are saying. I personally like to mix mine with the whey protein powder that we also sell here in a vanilla flavor at InfoWarsStore.com. So check those out. Roger, any other tidbits of news as we go out to break?
Only I mention again that this blows my mind. My legal expenses for my little jaunt before Congress yesterday and to fend off the completely frivolous and phony lawsuit have now hit $500,000. So for those patriots who want to help, you can go to stonedefensefund.com, administered by a third party, to help pay for my incredibly effective but not inexpensive lawyers. Or you can go to whoframedrogerstone.com. They'll both take you to the website for the legal defense fund that some of my friends have set up to try to help our family survive this liberal attack.
And that's another way they attack patriots and other people. They go, hey, we're going to just call you in. We're going to sue you. We're going to file these frivolous lawsuits. Now you got to lawyer up. Oh, we're the government. We have unlimited funds.
And if they decide they want to keep,
funds.
if Adam Schiff and others want to decide they want to keep going after Roger, that's a possibility too.
Right.
This isn't necessarily the end of this.
So we're all under attack. You have to support us, spread the word, let people know what's going on, because you are the resistance. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this short break. Infowars.com/show is the free stream that you can send out to everybody you know.